Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Tuesday, September 9th. Derek Van Riper, Saris, Jed Lowry here with you on this Tuesday episode. We got some baseball news you should know, including Tyler Glasnow spinning 7 no-hit innings and seemingly doing okay after that back tightness tall guy back got him in the weekend series against the Orioles. We got an update on Sean Murphy. He's going to have season-ending surgery. It might explain why he has struggled so much in the last couple of seasons. Some news follow-ups, including the details on Trey Turner's injury. We're going to dig deep into some hitter breakouts and determine if it's sustainable growth or if it's actually a career year. So that should be the main focus of today's episode. And we've got some updates, some very specific details about bats, because we had a resolution in the Taylor Trammell incident with the Yankees. It was about as non-scandalous as we expected when we first talked about it, but we'll get into how and why that was a problem at all at the end of today's episode. All right, gentlemen, lots of news to cover today. We'll start with Glasnow. The back appears to be fine. 11 Ks, 2 walks, 105 pitches, only 3 hard hit balls against the Rockies. He was 94.6 to 97 with the four-seamer. Something that caught my eye with Glasnow's pitch mix, though, last night, and it's been kind of like this throughout the season. 31 sliders, 27 curveballs, 27 sinkers, and 24 seamers. He's really evened out his mix quite a bit, but I thought it was particularly interesting that he threw 58 combined breaking balls. That is a pretty unique twist for any pitcher, and I think with Glasnow, maybe that's part of the evolution of just becoming a more balanced pitcher, like knowing that he has a deeper arsenal that he can work with. So I'm curious if you guys think this might be a better version of Glasnow in the long run with this seemingly 4-pitch, almost equal sort of mix.
Yeah, I mean, from a hitter's perspective, yeah, I mean, the more, and the velocity is not what it once was. It's still above average, but, it's not as dominant as it once was. And, he could kind of work off the fastball curveball pretty easily with the fastball velocity. So I think as as the velocity starts to drop, I think he's going to have to start pitching with, more shapes and keep guys off balance a little more.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Stuff Plus model has not, did not really think that was, it was one of his better ones, but it says that the curve has dropped below average in the last 3 starts. And it's hard to square with the results that are happening, but I also see that, like, compared to itself, the curveball is down in velo. He was 83, 84 with it earlier in the season, and now he's 81, 82 with it. So there's been some drop in velocity even on the breaking balls. I think in an effort to stay healthy, he's going to have to maybe step off of the velocity a little bit and, do something like this, be more of a big mix guy.
Yeah, no, and he's still got that elite extension with the high velocity. The curve, the velocity is, 82, still above average, and still has 6 inches more drop, than the average curveball. So, so I think that, like I said, it's not elite like it used to be, where, you could just go in there with a 2-pitch, like almost closer mix, because the stuff was so elite. Now, this is kind of the evolution of a pitcher, and to stay relevant, like I think of like a Felix Hernandez, right? Like starting to add more shape to every one of his pitches. And, as you lose the velocity, as you lose some of the elite stuff, you have to learn how to pitch. And I think that's where Glasnow is now. Like all of the, everything else looks great though. Like I said, I'm still going to bet on this guy, just because of his ability to get guys out, like set guys up with
spin the ball,
high extension. Even with just the perceived, like we're not even talking about perceived velocity, with the extension that he has, still throwing fastballs above and curveballs above average with more drop. I still think he's got a long runway if he stays healthy.
We'll say something nice about the Rockies in this one too. Chase Dollander looked pretty good for 5 innings against the Dodgers, right? And stuff's electric. It's just the classic. If he didn't have to pitch half his games in Colorado, that sort of problem still there for Dollander, but I wanted to make sure I got that in there.
One thing that's really interesting about him is that, Stuff Plus is now sort of adjusted for the types of stuff that hurts you in Colorado, like the altitude. And so he does have some good stuff numbers at home, but his command numbers are much worse at home.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at his road starts, he has better location plus data. And I wonder if he's suffering a little bit from like what the hitters deal with, where like things are so different home and away that it's hard to just have like a consistent approach and like have, know where your pitches are going. It seems like if you grew up in, all your mirrors were funhouse mirrors, it would be a hard time to like figure out what you actually look like. You know what I mean? So like he's having a hard time, I think.
Bring up, man. It's a weird thing to think about. Every mirror you ever saw growing up until you got to maybe high school was a funhouse mirror. So you just thought you were this like very rounded, oblong goblin person, and then you saw a regular mirror, and you're like, everything's in focus. I was just thinking,
a pretty good analogy.
I was thinking about it from a sport perspective. I was thinking, if you've ever bowled at the same place and you get used to the pattern, you throw a little hook, and your ball does what it does, and you go somewhere totally unfamiliar, and maybe it's super dry or it's a different pattern, and your ball doesn't do anything you expect it to, it drives you crazy. That's the best I could do. I like your funhouse mirror thing better. Like, I think we should make this. This sounds like a movie. This sounds like a Danish fairy tale from hundreds of years ago. Like the boy who grew up in a fun house and he turns into a prince and gets eaten by a large frog.
He thinks he's really ugly, but he's actually really fantastic looking.
That does sound like Hans Christian Andersen. Yeah.
It is shocking though. If you look at the elevation differences, they, obviously in, at Coors, they're above 5,000 feet. The next highest elevation stadium is actually it's like very close between the Diamondbacks and the Braves actually. Mm-hmm. And you're still talking like 1,000 feet. And so like the I know we always talk about the difference between that, but when you actually look at the difference on this chart that I'm looking at right now, like, you got a couple of thousands, then you get down to about 500 feet. And we see it year in and year out. Like it's just really hard to build a winner in that environment. And then you start considering that it's such an outlier in terms of elevation. I don't know what they do with that, but it is quite the outlier.
Yeah, it really is.
Difference on his pitches, home and away, is pretty amazing. So at home, he gets on the four-seam fastball, he gets 11 inches of IVB. And when you switch that over to away, it jumps up to 13.5. So you're talking about like 2.5 inches different movement on some of your pitches in different directions. Wow. That's, what we know about command is like the elite guys miss by, 8 or so inches, 8 or 9 inches. The average is more like, 10 to 12. So just right there, you add, if it's 2 inches, 3 inches of difference, you're going from elite to, like you're going from, like you could have
very
elite
average
command and you become average. Yeah. Or let's say probably what's true is that Dollander has average command, and this Coors is turning him into below average, terrible command. So the nice thing is, we learn over time how to deal with these things. If you did grow up with the funhouse mirrors, eventually it would just look normal and you'd still be able to pop that pimple and do whatever you needed to. It's just be over here instead of where it actually is or whatever, Like.
But you still got to play 81 games away from it, Yeah. Like you still and there's no other stadium that is anywhere like it. So you adjust your game or you for those 81 home games, and then you go on the road and all of a sudden you're a different player.
Yeah. I talked to people about those games in Mexico City.
I was there last year.
Yeah, and I talked to. I have a story that I don't think I'll ever be able to publish. It's a crazy one, but in one of the little side angles of the story was somebody talking about pitching somewhere that was another 1,500, like 1,500 feet higher than Mexico City. So just so you know, like, Coors is like 5,000 feet. Mexico City is like 7,000 feet. Yes, and this guy was talking about pitching at someplace that was like 9,000 feet. So he was like, I quit baseball afterwards. He was a pitcher and he was trying to pitch at 9,000 feet. He was like, I absolutely could not make the ball do anything. Like all it could do was go straight. All I could do is either straight and one velocity and straight and another velocity. That was all. And he's like, the scores all were in double digits. We never had a game that was lower than double digits each.
Kyle Tucker hit a home run in that series. I think that when I went back and looked at the launch angle and exit velocity, it was a home run in 0% of Major League ballparks.
Yeah. That's about what you'd expect. At that point, you have to start changing other variables. You say 4 outfielders, for example. Make the outfield huge, you get a 4th outfielder when you play here. Or you say, we're going to use a different ball. I don't know. Can you add more seams to the ball or something? Or deaden the ball?
Because you're already doing something with the humidor, right? Yeah, like why not make some high seam balls just for those places?
Let's add another ball controversy out there.
Actually,
what could go wrong?
Let's pretend like I've never ever suggested that, because that's a terrible idea. We do not want any more manipulation of the baseball.
Let them use spider tack again.
Yes. There you go. Spider tack above 7,000 feet. You can use as much spider tack as you want. Absolutely no restrictions on that.
It'd be hilarious because if it was like for the rules, there's just like a little spider tack thing out by the mound.
Just a little bucket just in the dispenser. Ground. Yeah. They would just get clogged right away, right? There's no way that dispenser would keep working properly. A lot of problems to solve here, but we'll keep on rolling ahead. I did see a piece from Craig Goldstein of Baseball Prospectus, and it was exploring this idea that the Dodgers kind of, I don't know if it's casual indifference, or you'd say, but like their approach to the regular season, if it becomes prevalent league-wide, might be a problem, where the collective conscious about the regular season from a fan perspective would be, it's just not that important. I'll tune in when the playoffs start.
And his argument was also not only the fans' perspective, but the reason that they're fomenting it, the way that the Dodgers are fomenting it, is by doing things like pitching Tanner Scott and Blake Treinen like in the same situation, like a no-hitter in the 9th, 2 days after they blew it, and not going to other options. I guess Ben Kasparius or Jake Dreyer, like all these other guys that they've tried. And I get that. I get that feeling. You get that feeling sometimes when you're watching a team that knows they're going to the postseason and is just trying to figure out who's healthy and who's going to play where, and just get there without anybody getting hurt and taking their guys out early and stuff like that. I get that.
Making sure your starting pitchers are healthy going into that,
right? So all it becomes especially like the last couple of weeks of the regular season, you really see it where there's like these weird things where starters go like 3 innings and stop because, even though the game is tight or whatever, but they're like, no, we just wanted you to stay stretched out, not get hurt before the playoffs. I mean, you'll see that. But one thing that I would like to say, and he was saying that this is sort of devoid of arguments about payroll. But I think that you actually have to build a good enough team to not care about the postseason. I mean, to not care about the regular season, right? Like you can't be in San Francisco right now and be like, we don't care about the regular season. You have to win to get in.
Exactly.
Like, so you still have to hit a very high threshold for your expected win total to get to the point the Dodgers are at. This is truly a capital L sort of luxury. And I think the other part of this that needs to be brought to the table is it possible that we're just a little bit wrong about how good they are? And again, I say this as someone that believes they can easily win the World Series. They have all the talent to do it. They can starting pitch their way to shorten up the bullpen because they have the talent at that side. We've explored that a lot. But there's like that aspect of it. Okay, like maybe they're very good, but not elite. Totally possible. And it's also really hard to build a team that dominates in the regular season year over year over year. Because if you take a look at just the wild card era, go back since 1995 and look at the teams that have won the most games, right? Seattle, 116 back in 2001. They didn't win the World Series that year, as you may know. Spoiler alert. If you haven't explored the 2001 season, the Mariners did not win the World Series that year. The Dodgers in 2022 won 111 games. Like, you don't always get the World Series anyway. And then you look at the fact that it's the Mariners, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Giants, and the Astros. 6 different teams atop that leaderboard for most regular season wins. Like, it's just
those are
hard
the teams
to sustain
that go. Those are also the teams that go far in the playoffs eventually. You know, like if you are on that list, you finally win one at one point. Right?
Yeah.
So you still want to be good. Yeah, I think the projections are interesting too. They're projected right now as a 98 win team. Still, this point in the season, and they're not going to get to 98 wins. You know, they're going to get to 91 or 92. So, you know, the projections are going to have been wrong about these Dodgers no matter what. And I think I was trying to allude to that a little bit when we talked about them earlier, was like, I hear you if you're a Dodgers fan and you think that they kind of suck right now. Like, I hear it. Like the offense has been pretty bad for 3-4 weeks. And I know that I do think they're going to come out of it, but it is interesting to think, like, what if they're not as good as we think?
Yeah, well, and that's expectation too, right? Is like you build up this expectation. Your fans, you kind of been spoiled as of late. You honestly, you expect to win every game when you have the Dodgers lineup, when you have their rotation, and the way that everybody was talking about that team early in the season is 91 wins, 92 wins is probably feels like a disappointment. But once again, you win the World Series, nobody cares.
I think part of it with the Dodgers, it's come up more with the Yankees in recent years, is the projections become less reliable with an older core, right? As you get more guys on the wrong side of 30, the lofty projections are more likely to be missed. And I think that's just sort of the nature of the type of team that deep-pocketed organizations can build, right? That's going to be part of it. Like Teoscar Hernandez taking a step back shouldn't be that surprising. Mookie Betts' whole situation with the illness, that's kind of an odd outlier.
It's
but
definitely built
I
on
agree.
free agency.
Freddie Freeman aging a little bit this year, not that big of a surprise, right? Like, it's just all of those things kind of happening in concert on top of some probably below average health outcomes that they maybe even expected based on the way they built the roster. So I think they, as good as they are, they might be built in a way to look even better than they actually are on paper. And then people get mad when the projections are wrong, even though they're still plenty good enough to make the run we expect them to make.
Yeah, and you know, don't you want your team to be healthy and going into the postseason? You know, especially when you have an older core like this. Of course, you know, we start talking about the NBA and workload management, and you know, some of these other aspects. Then we can go into the in-season tournament and trying to make, you know, regular season games more relevant. I feel like that might have been a little bit of a rabbit hole that I just opened or went down. But at the same time, like, I'm looking the guys that we talked about, like the Freemans, the Mookie Betts. I want these guys feeling good going into the postseason, physically feeling good going into the postseason.
And I guess that I hear what he's saying, because, you know, if the regular season mattered more, then, you know, you would have more urgency in that bullpen. But I would also suggest that urgency in the bullpen looks different depending on your manager. And maybe this is more just a Dave Roberts thing than we're definitely making the postseason, and so therefore I'm going to act this way. Because think back to the Devin Williams, Luke Weaver situation in New York. The fans were calling for a long time for Devin Williams to be removed from that role before he was, and I think that, when we look at small sample stuff with relievers and their careers are just a bunch of small sample years, we tend to be like, oh, well, Tanner Scott is terrible right now, And yet, if you look at the projections, Tanner Scott is projected to be the number one, like the best reliever on that team, and Blake Treinen is projected to be the second best on that team. So he, in some ways, Roberts is just managing the way that a sane person looking at the projections might manage it, as opposed to a more reactionary fan that's like, oh, that guy's crap, you got to get him out of there, So I think there's some of that might be part of this too. And I guess, and I don't want to say that what Craig wrote is wrong either, but there is some of it is like, hey, I need to know if Tanner Scott and Blake Treinen are going to be there for me the postseason, So I guess he's, so to some extent he's doing that. But, are you really going to turn the Dodgers over to Ben Casparius and Jack Dreyer like right now? Well, I think you're going to give them more time. You're going to give the big guys with the big money contracts more time to prove that they can't do it.
If I were going to go with the younger guys in those leverage spots in October, I would want to test the waters on that now.
Yeah, you can make the argument that they should be going to the young guys if they don't care about the regular season.
Yeah, I think
they should be seeing who could be their closer.
Yeah, 100% agree.
If there are doubts about the veteran guys, I would definitely want to test the young guys and see how they react in those big situations, because you've got a decent idea on how how the veteran guys are going to, especially like a guy like Blake Treinen who has all the experience he does in the postseason. You got a pretty good idea that he knows how to handle those situations. So
so if you wanted more stuff, if you think his stuff is down, then you don't pitch him now. You pitch Casparius, who has maybe better stuff now, but you don't know if he can handle it. So
yeah,
I don't know. I do think that there is a long-term trend of devaluing the regular season, and that's just something that the baseball has to deal with because they keep adding postseason teams. And if they expand, and have more teams, and we get all of a sudden we have 16 teams in the postseason, or something ridiculous, then they better reduce the amount of regular season games, because you've just devalued the postseason by saying anybody above 500 gets into the playoffs, and you're basically the NBA. So I think that they do have to be careful with how many teams they put in the postseason.
I've wondered if there's any way to tie success in the regular season to draft order. And I'm fine with punishing bad teams and saying, you got to find some other way out of this. Like you're not getting more ping pong balls for being bad. You're not drafting early if you're bad. Like that might be part of it. And then
so
your
best
regular
season record gets. I mean, if you want to get them the number one pick,
well, at least better picks for the teams that are pushing.
Or maybe they get a comp pick. Maybe they get there's a comp round. Maybe the best they get the 25th pick or the 30th pick or something,
which opens up your draft pool, and teams care about that. So
especially for teams that maybe build in free agency and lose those comp picks, right? To get one back by being the best team in baseball, say, that's something maybe the MLBPA should argue for, right? It's like, because now you're trying to build a good team, you're trying to spend in free agency, and you have the chance of getting one of those picks you lose in free agency back.
Yeah, it's not as wild as let's expand by 10 teams, cut the league in half, and have expansion, have a promotion and relegation like last year. But it is
a small thing that you could throw into. I mean, it's going to be a contentious CBA, so maybe it's not going to get in there, but it's a small thing that you could put on the table.
Hey, they're all contentious at this point, so you might as well try to get what you want if you're going to go through all of that anyway, right? So,
what I like about it is like one of the issues that the MLBPA needs to do. One of the things that they always are trying to do is kind of put a wedge between the big markets and the small markets, because that's a way to kind of keep the owners from being all on the same page. And this kind of a thing is like perfect. It's like, you can see the Dodgers being like, "Oh yeah, we like that one."
Hey, the Pirates would have been playing in League One in my scenario like 7 years ago, so we would have solved that part of the equation before. Hate to pick on just the Pirates in this case. I had a trivia question for you guys though, as a result of digging into some regular season win total stuff. What do you think the median regular season win total is for teams that reached the World Series in the wild card era? So since '95. Median win total of those teams from the regular season. Throw me a number.
I've got a number.
I'll say 90.
90 for Jed. What do you think?
I'm going 92.
It's actually 95.
Wow.
Yeah, it's higher than I expected, because it's 94 if you don't throw out 2020, but you should throw out 2020. There are only 60 games played that year, so it's 95. And this year, it looks like we may only have one team that even tops 95 wins in the regular season. Usually there's more like 4.
So this is a weird season.
So this is a little bit of a weird season in that context.
So is that a good thing? Does that mean more parity, or does that just mean that that people are trying to, or teams are trying to
devalue the regular season and don't care about it, and just build a 90-win team and get in?
Yeah. So I mean,
I don't know. That's not how I felt that the off-season free agency went.
Yeah,
Like the big teams went for it and spent money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's two sides to that coin, right? As you'd say, devalue the regular season, but then at the same time, you're actually there's a little bit more parity because of more teams, I guess, are closer in win totals. I know we did the big playoff thing last week, but there's still some tight races, a couple of games. I think we were talking more just like looking at rosters and thinking that the teams that are in have the best rosters. But, we still got a few weeks left of baseball to play to really figure out where these teams land.
I mean, Slade Ciccone carried a no-hitter deep into that win for the Guardians over the Royals. That series matters. We've talked a lot about the AL being
especially
clustered
if it's a sweep
up
in either direction, because they're both kind of neck and neck. So if one can kind of eliminate the other as a contender, there's fewer people to jump over.
And we had a Mets loss with a Giants win. So the Giants still alive?
Yeah, the
pulse just keeps ticking up a little bit every single time. We're at 4.9% chance to make the playoffs.
I just want to give a shout out to Drew Gilbert, because if you've ever seen a player play like the hair's on fire, it's Drew Gilbert. Dude drank all of the Red Bulls before the game.
Jed, what's the best caffeine ritual you saw from a teammate or an opponent? Do you have one that stands out in your head?
Yeah, I mean, there were I've seen multiple Monsters and Red Bulls before the game. Dustin Pedroia was a guy that consumed a lot of caffeinated beverages before games. And you want to talk about like playing with your hair on fire. I mean, that guy was giving everything he had. And there's that's the one that pops into my mind off the top of my head. And
do you remember Ramon near the end?
Ramon Laureano?
Yeah, Laureano. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The espresso machine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's. Yeah, there's a lot of caffeine consumption in Major League Baseball. You think about in a bygone era when greenies were more prevalent. Obviously, those are performance enhancing in every aspect of them, and especially in a game where you're playing every single day, and you have that mental edge. Not only the mental edge, but physically just feeling better. So yeah, there's a lot of caffeine consumption that is trying to make up for the lack of greenies.
Yeah. How about this one, Jed? We have a writer friend, Emma Bacculari. She has admitted to this even. She has brewed coffee where instead of water, she used Red Bull.
Oh God. That would taste awful, wouldn't it?
We'll classify that one under acquired taste.
Yeah. Is she still with us? Okay.
Yeah.
That's that's the writer. So
right. She's not even out there playing.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about all the greenies that players aren't taking anymore, and wondering if on the podcasting side, maybe we should help that market out a little bit. Like our podcasting could go to the next level.
Yeah, no more drug tests for me.
Performance enhancing pods.
Really pick up the energy level here.
I mean, we're already talking about children growing up only with funhouse mirrors. So
yesterday it was Mr. Poo-Poo Head. I don't know if we need to take it another level.
Who knows where this thing goes?
All right, let's get to another big picture topic for today. Looking at some hitters, trying to parse out whether these guys are having career years or if there's some significant and sustainable growth. And I think this is a challenge every single year. I think ahead to the conference we're going to go to in November, First Pitch Arizona. The Factor Fluke panels, those are like the bread and butter of that conference. You're looking at players that just went completely bananas the previous year and just trying to say, is this real? Is this what we're going to get the following season or even something close to it? Challenging exercise, always a lot of fun. As always, started with a giant spreadsheet. Walk me through the big board.
This is how I start like half my stories. But this is just 28 and younger, biggest WRC plus riser. So basically league adjusted, park adjusted performance for guys that had a 400 plate appearances last year and 400 plate appearances this year. So I didn't want it to be a small sample thing. I wanted it to be most of a year. I wanted to allow for some guys to sort of come on the scene. So 400 plate appearances in both. And so at the very top, you got Michael Garcia going from a 71 WRC plus last year. So he was 29% worse than league average last year. And now he is 27% better than league average this year. But you've got some great names on here with Bryce Turang. You've got some almost veterans in Cal Raleigh and Corbin Carroll, but a lot of more guys who established themselves this year, maybe Sal Free, like Jeremy Pena, Joe Adele, Pete Crow Armstrong. So it's a great list. Down at the bottom, it gets down to only a 10% difference. That's where you have Michael Bush and Andy Pajes and Gleyber Torres and Colt Keith. When it's a 10% difference, I feel like that is normal variance year to year. It could be tempting to say Colt Keith has reached a new level, but if that new level is 5% better than league average instead of 5% worse than league average, I hesitate to call that a breakout. So, I was tempted to stop the list a little bit higher, but I did want Shea Langoliers on the list. So I did some fun with spreadsheets to make sure Shea Langoliers is on the list.
No, so you manipulated the data to your own liking.
Yes, I did.
So why did you do that? What's going on? I mean, we've talked about the strikeout rate being way down this year, going all the way back to spring training. And the first player that pops into my head when we're talking about huge changes, K rate year over year, Ronald Acuna Jr., right? The monster year where he got the K rate down under 15%. It was like, whoa, like he's going to do that now too. It didn't stay. It was 11.4% in 2023 when Acuna hit the 41 homers and stole 73 bases. I don't know how that happened. I feel like we're going to need scholars to study that season for a long time to explain it, because in the almost combined full season's worth of plate appearances since, not even quite that many, he's been in the 23.9 to 26.1% range these last two seasons. And that's more in line with his career numbers. So when you see that sort of massive improvement from a player, I think you're always right to be skeptical. It's very hard to sustain that much growth. Now, for Langoliers, he went from 27.2% last year down to 19.3% this year. It's at least
not
closer.
As crazy.
Not as crazy. But where do we go from here? Because that's a huge part of what he's doing this year.
And I think you're right to you would project a higher strikeout rate going forward, and so all the projections do. But I was surprised when I looked at the 60 players that improved their strikeout rate the most over the last 2 years and were under 28. Only 3 of them, Bryce Turang, Bobby Witt Jr., and Josh Naylor, gave all of that strikeout rate improvement back. Now, those 3 players are pretty interesting because they didn't suffer much for it. I mean, they're all still pretty good players. I think Turang has decided, hey, I will strike out a little bit if it offers me access to this power, And so, there is just a sort of a toggle between power and strikeout rate. However, Shea has kept the strikeout, the power up while giving back, while improving the strikeout rate. So I really like that. I like that there are things I can see. I like that I've talked to him and he said this was a thing I worked on all off season. And I like that I can look at his stance data and see he's spread out a little bit and that he worked on his 2-strike approach. And I also like that he improved his framing, which wasn't the best. So I really see a lot of intentionality in this, where it was like he looked at the issues that he had and he worked on all of them, and he managed to keep the strengths that he had, which was the bat speed, the barrel rate, the hard hit rate. They're all the same as his regular season. What he'd done before. All he's done is just improve the parts that were bad. Lastly, one thing that I just really love about this is what he's done so far this year matches his projections almost to a T. Here's his slash line this year, 262, 310, 528. Here's his bat X projection for Shea Langoliers, 260, 320, 500. So I think he's just reached this new level of performance. This is a level of performance that people predicted for him. There was a lot of people who said this is the kind of guy you can be. Now his park might even for the next 2 years clean up a little if there is any regression there and help him along. So I think he can strike out. I think he can give back some of his strikeout rate next year and strike out 22% of the time and still have a really good average, a pretty good OBP, and hit all the dingers. So I think this is a new level of performance for Shea Langeliers. I think also if you look at the history of catchers, they debut later, they peak later. It takes them a little bit longer to get going offensively.
And it'll be interesting case study too with guys that played multiple years in Oakland as well, and then moved to Sacramento and see what that does. I mean, just from an average perspective, we could talk about the marine layer, but the foul ground in and of itself, and it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, like how many outs, or you're walking back to the dugout. I mean, I have nightmares about some of them, but where those are multiple rows up into the seats, and how many points that takes off your batting average and what that does to confidence, and how playing in Sacramento, just from the lack of foul territory to the hitter friendly environment, will continue to elevate some of these guys. And it'll be, like I said, it'll be really interesting to see the guys that played a couple years in Oakland and what those baseline stats were in Oakland versus Sacramento.
I do think for Langeliers too, you see a pretty steady increase in contact every single year he's been in the league, both inside and outside of the strike zone. That really supports that improving K rate. How exactly he did it, as far as I would love to know more about his process, how he's improved his bat to ball so much year over year over year. But I think you're right too to call out that it does take catchers a little bit longer sometimes, and that park is a great boost for all of those bats.
Yeah, the chase contact does, the increase. I'm looking at it about a 6% increase, 5.5% increase year over year at least. And I guess even for for his whole career, he's about 50% chase contact. He's up to 56. That's a little concerning because you're starting to make weaker contact out of the zone. But
I think some of that's in 2 strike counts. I think he's just protecting, because you see some of the bat speed go down in 2 strike counts. I think he's just sort of trying to put the ball in play, which might have something to do with the park too. It's like, if I just put this ball in play, it might be a better situation than it used to be.
Exactly, where you just can't do that in Oakland.
Yeah.
Jed, you are going to hone in on a player that was a request again for this segment. One of the most requested players for us to discuss on the pod over its existence, Jo Adell.
Yeah.
35 home runs. Unfortunately, some breaking news tied to Jo Adell. He actually is dealing with a spell of vertigo right now, so that is not great. He was supposed to play Monday, was scratched from the lineup, so we'll see if he's able to get back from that in the next couple of days. But that is an ailment you absolutely do not want. With Adell, we've been expecting a big payoff since he was a prospect. It certainly has happened, maybe in a different sort of categorical shape than we expected. And I've talked about the lower half injuries he's dealt with earlier in the year, probably holding back the stolen bases a little bit. But as far as what he's done as a hitter, knowing he's got that top end bat speed, especially, are we looking at Jo Adell as a possible perennial 30 home run guy for these next couple of seasons?
Yeah, I think so. I think the bat speed, it's still very elite. And as I'm looking at what he's done so far this year, I think he is a guy that does. I mean, this is a guy that also, we talked about this a little bit in our production meeting about guys that kind of get rushed through the minor leagues and how you kind of have to take the early results. So if you look at 2020 to 2023, the one note that I have is run value in the heart of the plate was -17 from 2020 to 2023. And you just can't be an effective major league hitter. And he had 1,100 plate appearance in the minor leagues, including the Arizona Fall League. And there's not a ton of red flags. I mean, he's such a big, strong kid in terms of production. It was a 25% K rate. But this is clearly a kid that, he either didn't have a solid approach or was still searching. And I think it's hard to say that he wasn't rushed to the major leagues and had a little bit of regression even when he went back to the minor leagues. and came back refocused. And if we're going to look at, year over year from 24 to 25, the big difference is you guys are probably tired of me saying this, but it's the fastball. I mean, batting average up 38 points from year over year, slugging up 121 points on the fastball, exit velocity up 4.4, and the whiff rate down 2.1%. So this is a guy that is actually like dominating the fastball right now. And that's where like run value, 4-seamer run value, -8 last year to 6 this year. Heart rate run value, 2 in 24, 16 this year. So not only is he's dominating the plate. I mean, his chase contact is down, his zone contact is up, his pull in the air. Actually, for a guy that has elite bat speed like this, his pull in the air last year was 23.4. It's 18.4 this year, so down 5%. But where that's gone is straight in the air. And if you look, he's got 8 home runs to the right of center field this year. And so if this is a guy that with the bat speed that he has, he can hit the ball out to any part of the ballpark. And so if that approach stays consistent, I think with the elite bat speed that he has and he continues to dominate the fastball in the zone, I think, is he going to be a 300 hitter? Probably not. But if he continues to dominate the fastball and has that through the middle approach, and when he gets a mistake, he's still going to hit it out to the pull side. I think this is the perfect place for him to be in terms of pull errors, like that 18, 19, maybe 20%, still above league average. But with the bat speed that he has, I love the idea of him getting the ball in the air to the middle of the field as a consistent approach.
I see that as the big adjustment that he made, because you see early on his pull rates in 21 and 2022 were 47%, and now he's down to 40%. We don't have bat tracking data that far back, but what we know now is he lets the ball travel now, and I think letting the ball travel with elite bat speed, that's the sort of Soto Ohtani package, and Judge and Kurtz, these are all good hitters. Now he has the worst innate bat to ball of those guys. But I don't know if he necessarily has the worst eye of those guys. His chase is not that bad, Joe Adell's. So I think he just had to settle in, and maybe early on he was like, oh, pull air. That's where I'm going to get all my power. And then he realized I have enough bat speed to let this travel and still go out to the opposite field. So that's been a big thing. I also see that he's spread out a little bit, which is something that Shea Langoliers did. So, I kind of think that spreading out can help you with your contact a little bit. I think that, I looked at Corbin Carroll, and Corbin Carroll reduced the amount of space between his feet and became more upright. And I think when you become more upright, you can access more power possibly, because what you're doing is you're striding more into it. Like you're striding into your openness, like you're kind of shifting weight and you're kind of coming from higher. So you're kind of creating like a little bit of loft on your swing. When you're more spread out, I think that's you're staying more level, and you're not doing as much movement forward and backward, right? You're just picking the foot up and putting it down, as opposed to like striding into something. So I think for him that those two adjustments have been pretty good for making the contact. I was prepared to say that I didn't like him long term, because the OBP is going to hover around 300. And I just did a search where I was just like, who's good that has an OBP this low? And then I found maybe a good comp.
Adolis Garcia. That's exactly what I see in the numbers. And Garcia was a little more of a late bloomer, because I think he was much less of a highly anticipated prospect than Adell. But you get to your mid-late 20s, you get that regular run of playing time. Adell, defensively by the metrics, still doesn't look like a guy that's going to fit long-term in center, but it could be a good right fielder. And
there's a 1-year blip in his defensive numbers. I just wanted to point out. I think that's related to the hip injury this year. I think he has all the tools. Before we were talking about him possibly in center field, he can't be a bad right fielder all of a sudden. So I think there's a little bit of injury related stuff on his. I would say next year I would think he'd be an above average defensive right fielder.
Yeah, I think I trust him for sure as a right fielder with health. I think it might be impacting him to the point where he's not this bad in center field in a healthy year. Maybe he's like a -4 instead of a minus double digits. in defensive runs saved, right? And you might be able to live with that if you're the Angels. So, yeah, the more I look at Joe Adell, the more I'm believing that this is actually pretty sustainable, and it might come with a little more speed next year with better health too. So I kept waiting all season. I'm like, no, there's going to be there's going to be a stretch where we see a 40% K rate for 6 weeks and it all unravels. I don't think that's happening. I think this is a guy that's found his way, and he's part of a cohort of players that came through the minor leagues when there wasn't a season in 2020. That is suboptimal for player development. One of the guys I wanted to bring up, CJ Abrams, went through that too, and he had injuries on top of that. Like this will always blow my mind. CJ Abrams played in 114 minor league games before he played in the big leagues out of high school.
Yeah.
That's a really tough path into the big leagues. And the thing that I saw with CJ Abrams, digging in a little bit, I was looking at Robert Orr's Seager metric that, of course, is balancing aggression with decisions you make outside the zone. He's actually jumped up to the 40th percentile in Seager. First 2 seasons, Abrams has lived in that 20th percentile range. Big difference is he's not so aggressive on the first pitch. He's down to a 33% swing rate on the first pitch. He was previously in the 40% range. I think what we're seeing is a guy that's learning better strike zone decisions and taking a good hit tool and actually making something out of it. So it's never going to be a 10 or 12% walk rate. At least I don't think it's going to be for CJ Abrams. But I think he can have the good average, good OBP sort of slash line, does enough damage when he pulls the ball in the air to have 20, maybe 25 homers at his peak. I don't know if there's a lot more power in that bat, but he has enough power where I think pitchers will at least respect that. I think we've seen him handle four-seamers capably each of the last 2 seasons. As Jed talks about all the time, fastball is really important. If you can't hit the fastball, you're going to have a lot of issues. Abrams can do that. So all I really see as far as like the big question with CJ Abrams is, can he get better at shortstop and stay there, or does he have to play somewhere else defensively? And, beyond that, I trust it. Like the rest of the season projections at 255, 318, 420. That's a little less than what he's doing right now. I think
you could almost make the case there could be another level.
I think it's like 270, 275, 335, 340 OBP, 440, 450 slug in his best year. But he does it with good power and a lot of speed. A ton of the value CJ Abrams provides comes with what he does on the base path. He's a plus base runner. So I think that gives him a chance at 40 bags any given season. If it keeps him atop the order, he's going to score a ton of runs. He's going to do a lot of things we really like on the fantasy side. The more I look at Abrams, the more I think this is just the good natural progression of a young player that came up, had enough success to stay up, but had some really imbalanced seasons up to this point.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a guy, we're talking about a 20 home run guy with 30 plus stolen bases, pretty much in every big league season that he's had, and he's still 24.
Yeah.
So
the age is in his favor. Yeah.
It very much in his favor. And just from like a natural strength development and, maturation process, I really don't think, I didn't dig into this. This was, this is the guy that you wanted to talk about, DVR. So I didn't dig in too much on him, but just on the surface level, this guy, to Eno's point, has another level. And I think that's just part of like the maturation process, being a 25, 26-year-old with this approach, like to continue to put up these numbers. If you're a 20, 30 guy as a shortstop, once again, if he can stick there, hugely valuable.
Yeah. Bright future
Are we gonna, do we only pick guys we liked? I have one that that might surprise people that I think is just in a career year.
No, go for it.
Do it.
Cal Raleigh? Am I crazy?
You're not crazy.
Wait. So you're saying the best season a catcher's ever had is a career year?
Yeah,
you're really out on a limb on this one. I
don't think this is a hot take. Yeah, like 27, 30, 34, 53. Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying 53 next year.
I actually did want to just zero in on batting average. I know this is kind of a fantasy argument, but it will affect his OBP, it will affect his WRC plus, it will affect him going forward. And I think it is a slight flaw in his approach, which is just that he gets the ball out in front more than almost anybody in baseball, and he hits more fly balls than anybody in baseball. And if you look at, he's he right now with a 58% fly ball rate. That's the highest fly ball rate that anybody's had since 21 started in any given season, any qualified season. And if you just sort that leaderboard, it's the weirdest leaderboard. It's not one that you want him to be a part of. It's Anthony Santander, Jack Suwinski, Austin Meadows, Adam Duvall, Dalton Varsho, and Torkelson. And I think maybe the best comp for him is Dalton Varsho. So, with I would say less speed in a given year. So what he's done makes sense for him, and it has led to this 53 home run season, but it also will lead to things like his second half, where you're out in front too much, you're missing the ball a lot, and your strikeout rate goes up, and your batting average and OBP goes down. So right now, in the second half, he has a 31% strikeout rate with a 296 OBP and a 208 average. So It's still a 116 WRC plus. He's still awesomely valuable for his team. I am not saying he shouldn't win the MVP, and I'm not saying anything really that negative. It's in the end, you guys are right. I'm kind of just taking chalk here and saying he can't do this again. But I do think that people should, when they think next year, oh, well, I'll take him and he'll hit 240. And even if he doesn't hit 50 homers, he'll hit 35, 40 and it'll be great. Any given season, this kind of approach can lead to like a 205 batting average, as it has in the second half.
Yeah. And I think, I think fatigue plays a part of the second half. He's been playing a lot and playing catcher.
And if they go to the postseason, will he play? Yeah. Will he play even further? Like, could there be, fatigue leads to injury, so there could be some possible injury ramifications for this next year if he goes deep into the postseason.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, magical season. Home run derby, all of it, right? But I'm not banking on Cal Raleigh having this type of season again. And there's. I mean, if you're the Mariners, you got to start thinking about, if Harry Ford's the guy to come up and take some of the pressure off on the catching side of it, let Cal DH or maybe play a little first base. So yeah, but the bat, you're still like with his approach. I mean, I was looking, the chase rate is down, which I love. The fact that the chase rate is down, especially when the walk rate is so high. He's still got great bat speed. There's not going to be, there's not going to be a ton of. There's probably not going to be room for improvement on the K side because he's just going to take so many chances. But as long as he can stay in the ball
that far out in front,
yeah, exactly. And so, but if you can keep the chase rate, steady where it is. With the bat speed, assuming he can maintain that, I think that he's still going to be a very effective hitter. Bottling up the magic from this year might be, might be hard to do again.
Yeah. By the way, Harry Ford has not played in the game.
I think he's just there for the emergency situations. Some of the teams that expanded roster with that position player just got a third person on the roster who can catch and
get a taste of hanging out with Cal, learning from Cal.
Yeah, just get to learn the staff a little bit, kind of figure out how you're going to break in more in 2026.
Because Garver is a free agent, right? So maybe they're grooming him to be ready for next year.
Yeah, he should be. Jeremy Pena also popped on this board, Jed. So career year or sustainable growth? And it's always possible that it's a little bit of both, right? You could have a career year, but also play at a level above what you had done previously.
Yeah. Once again, I'll go back to the. I'll go back to the tried and true. Yeah, there you go. Batting average up 63 points, slugging up 156, exit velocity up almost a full mile an hour, whiff rate down 0.5%, but still that's growth. Run value against the four seamer up 12, heart run value up 11. So he's a guy that he swings a lot. The K rate is good. The walk rate is actually something that I'm looking at. He's still not a big walker, but he went from 3.8% to 6.4. That's a big jump for a guy that doesn't have or that swings a lot, I should say. So I like the idea that he is walking more. And I think it's important for someone who makes as much contact as he does and doesn't have the elite bat speed, right? He's got good bat speed, but it's not elite. So I think being able to walk for Jeremy Pena is important, because if he's chasing out of the zone with average bat speed, he's just not going to be putting the ball in play as hard as others who are going to make contact as much as he does. I will say the whiff rate rose slightly, and the zone swing actually went down. So I'm okay with that, because I think he's being more selectively aggressive. We talk about that, right? Like if your whiff rate is going up, but your zone swings are going down, I actually think you're being more selective, and it's leading to better results. And the bat speed is down a little bit, but the squared up rate and the barrel rate have gone through the roof. So I think as a player, that he is, once again, you're talking about a 15 home run, 20 stolen base guy. If he can stay selectively aggressive and let it rip when he gets his pitch, I mean, I don't know if a barrel rate for Jeremy Pena of 8.2% is sustainable. But I love the idea that his squared up rate is up to 29.8%, and that he's staying in the zone better and quite frankly whiffing more. I like that more, as long as he's
taking his chances. He's
taking
the ball further out in front. I think
exactly.
That's led to
and
more fly balls, some more hard fly balls, some more barrels.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think part of that is like learning who you are as a major league hitter, and learning which pitches you handle and what you're capable of driving. So I think that this is you're talking about a 27-year-old. He's kind of in that, prime of his career, where he's got enough experience at the major league level to know who he is as a player, the pitches he can handle. And I think when he gets those pitches now, he's letting it rip.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much more ceiling there is, because like you said, the bat speed's not elite. And I don't know that I want to just like put a projection on him and be like, oh, this is a guy who could go 30-30 next year. I think he will basically do what he's done again. And one nice thing is he's elite in sprint speed. He's elite in range defensively. There's no way that your best team, as an Astros, doesn't include him out there. So there's no reason to sit him, or, like you want Jeremy Pena on your team. You want him to play every day. So, that gives him those chances to do what you're talking about, mature as a hitter. So I don't know that I would try to bake in. It's one of those things where I don't think you can put him on sleeper list next year, because, this is who he is. But, another, it's a nice thing to say this is who he is.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you get a 27-year-old shortstop with an 833 OPS and stealing 20 bases, I think anybody in the league will sign up for that.
Yeah, this looks a lot better. It's kind of the consolidation of a few things, but then a nice step that I think is largely sustainable for Pena as well. The last player I'll throw into the conversation, Michael Garcia. It was a really bad luck year at the plate in 2024, looking at some of the things that were happening. Hits the ball hard, the BABIP cratered, wasn't tapping into any real in-game power. That's changed. A lot more fly balls, a lot more pulled fly balls. He's up to the 32nd percentile right now, which is not extreme. He's not selling out for it. Low K rate, walking more than ever. Great defender, so that drives the playing time, and that was something that I really didn't think enough about back during draft season. I've liked the fact that throughout his career, he's always given himself a chance in plate appearances by not chasing. That's a good foundational attribute. Consistently like a 25% or lower O swing from Michael Garcia breaking into the big leagues. That looks really good. Makes a lot of contact inside the zone. I think my biggest question is, when I look at the rest of the season projection, the slash line spits out a 279, 339, 414 from the bat X. That's about like 75% of the improvement from last year. So not splitting the difference, but actually still erring on the side of this being mostly a new level. That feels about right to me. What I really want to know is your guys' perspective on massive changes in ground ball rate. How much do we want to buy into a 7 percentage point drop in ground ball percentage? Because going from 49.3 to 42.6 this year, that's one of the bigger movers you're going to find year over year. And I feel like it's one of those metrics that when you look at it, a lot of times you do give that back unless you made a wholesale change to your swing to consistently get the ball in the air more often. We did see an increase in bat speed from last year for Michael Garcia, and that just sort of makes sense based on his age, right? He's just getting physically stronger. But do you think the components of Michael Garcia's his approach and his swing actually sustain a significant increase in getting the ball in the air? Because that to me is going to make or break whether or not he ever flirts with 20 home runs. It will, even just next year, if he can flirt with 20 home runs again next year.
I think I found once that you keep about a half of your launch angle changes over season to season. So that's a way that I was looking at it for, I think, Manny Margot some years ago.
Yeah, I think I remember that. It was like a second half. He started hitting the ball in the air more in the second half, and it was a question of like, is this the new Manny Margot? And it kind of wasn't.
So I think if you project him, you might project him to come somewhere close to his career number, which is 32%. Maybe you give him 34%. So you're not going to give him as many homers next year, but it's still going to be double-digit homers, and it's still going to be a good batting average and a good OBP, a really good defense. Again, I think that's just important for there was a little moment this preseason where it's like, oh, is he playing in center field? Is he playing in second? Is his elbow hurt? Is he playing in third? And I, for a moment, was nervous, like, oh my God, is he going to be a bust because they're going to make him a utility guy? And no, he is so good defensively that like it's more like, what's his defensive home? It's not, is he going to play? And he's good enough offensively that it's a little bit like Pena, where it's like, hey, maybe there's not another level, and maybe he regresses a little bit, but the defense, the speed, they're all going to keep him on the field.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking at a guy that's in the 89th percentile for chase, 92nd for whiff, 92nd for K, I'm and 98th for squared up right now. Like, this is a guy who presents as somebody who has elite hand-eye coordination and pitch recognition. So there's a.
How much are you worried about? Like, is he getting the exact right launch angle every time? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, I'm just gonna say, like, there's an argument to be made of like we're talking about with Jeremy Pena right there, like being selectively aggressive and taking your chances. I think, I wouldn't even mind to see his whiff rate go up a little bit, where he's taking more chances inside the zone to drive baseballs.
And that might be the best version of Garcia eventually. Maybe it is 25 to 30 home run power with a slightly higher K rate. Strikes out 17 or 18% of the time instead of 12% of the time. But if you're the Royals, you would happily take that sort of trade-off, I think, because you need that extra thump up and down the lineup. But yeah, I think I've developed a greater appreciation for the combination of skills that Michael Garcia has. And it was not easy to see it's not easy to see a season like this one coming based on what he put down on the back of the baseball card a year ago. So I'm going to tick the sustainable growth box on this one.
I know we're running out of time, but I just want to squeeze this in real quick because it'll be stale if we wait too long. The Taylor Trammell stuff came down, and it turns out that he had a non-glossy finish on his bat, and so that, like, the two-tone nature sort of, after a while, because he didn't have a glossy finish on it, and he kept his bat, he kept using it. They said he used it in the minor leagues. It just sort of wore off to the point where it was kind of hard to see the two tones. You didn't have the this is white and this is black. You kind of had like, a gray, a mess right there. So that was why I got in trouble. But it did inspire me to ask around. I have known that Elliot Ramos has a sandpaper finish, and if you can see, Jed Lowry's bat here has a gloss finish. Now, the difference there would be that the sandpaper would grip the ball and impart more spin on the ball. That it is true. That is what happens. However, is that any good? So I went and asked Keenan Long about it. And he said, that I'm going to skip some of the stuff about Trammell in particular, but the most interesting stuff that Keenan Long said was about finishes. So he said, the only stipulation on finish in the rules or in the manufacturer's guidelines is that it shall be smooth. There's no measure of roughness. And what, according to Keenan Long, the quote is, it's incredibly underdefined for today's game. If you think about it, if you're a manufacturer, it shall be smooth. Well, okay, this sandpaper finish, I mean, it's smooth. Like what's your definition of smooth? And so, he said there are ways to measure roughness that they could have just said this is the amount of roughness that's allowed. And so, he said that players often say that more spin is good, but physics does not support that. Golfers know what happens when there's too much spin, even backspin. It robs distance. 2,500 RPM is diminishing returns. And this is the most interesting thing. This is why I wanted to share it, make sure to share it. I love this. So Keenan Long says, finish has an effect on other metrics we collect in the lab too, but I can't get into more detail. As our influence in the game grows, it'll become evident what we are advising our clients to do in terms of finishes. I'm connecting some dots here, but this is a Keenan Long Ball Labs Jed Lowry Major League bat. There's no sandpaper finish on there.
Oh, come on,
looks
Jed.
pretty glossy.
You don't want the sandpaper challenge? Come on.
I was way behind the curve, apparently.
Did you ever think about gloss? Did you ever think about your finish?
Not in the. I just I anecdotally I've seen guys like that wanted to increase spin. Like there's a lot of talk about back spinning balls and how they carry further, and like I just never believed that adding additional friction made any sense. And so guys do weird things in baseball. Like you're doing the same thing over and over again every single day. And if you get a positive result, you might start thinking that it's this one thing when it really had nothing to do with it.
I sprayed a little bit too much pine tar, a little bit high on the barrel, and then I hit that homer. So let me do that again.
Exactly. So I never subscribed to the idea of friction on the barrel or more spin was better. I wanted to hit the ball hard and at an angle that allowed it to go as far as it could go.
Yeah.
Seems like a good recipe to me. I don't know.
The other thing they said that was kind of interesting.
Keep it simple, stupid.
That the major leaguers go through bats a lot more. So he's like, the reason that this happened is that Taylor Trammell is somewhere between a minor leaguer and a major leaguer. So the minor leaguers don't get as many bats from the manufacturers. They don't just switch them. Like as a major league, you might just switch one, even if it's not broken. You might just go on to the next one because you're about to get another batch. Who cares? But minor leaguers don't get that. They don't get the same treatment from the bat manufacturers. And he said that it might be true that his portion here is a little bit thicker than yours because, he doesn't want it to break, right? Mm-hmm. And so if it was a little bit thicker here, then it wouldn't break and he'd be able to hold it through losing the gloss and losing everything. So that's interesting too, because that's the anti-torpedo. If you have more weight here, it's less in the barrel. And everybody that I've had that was swinging, that I've been taking your bat everywhere, and I haven't figured out what to do with it. But I think what I'm going to do is it's going to be a reward it's going to be an in practice reward to swing this bat.
Yeah,
so
that's
there's
probably best and highest use.
Yeah. So if you do something stand out in the game, like we will give you an at bat with the pro bat at the end. But because it seems like I shouldn't use this for fungo. That seems like
that one in particular is pretty. That's a pretty one.
Nice.
That was
too nice to use for
kind
fungo,
of the matte black handle and the glossy white barrel.
But just to finish, what people said when they because I'm interacting with a lot of little league coaches right now, and they have fungo bats, and they bought like a cheap wooden bat at the store, and they're like, oh my god, all the weight is in the barrel. They're like, you can feel it. It feels so light near the handle and so quick, and everything. You're just swinging this like barrel sledgehammer out there. Whereas these other bats you get for fungo and stuff, they have thicker handles, and they're not as don't feel as like. This feels different.
I'm just thinking about I'm playing golf on Friday afternoon. I'm gonna get some cooking spray and spray it on my driver. Get that extra gloss on there. Do a little research for myself. See how that turns out for me. I got enough problems out there. I don't need to add more variables. But yeah, the Trammell bat situation, the league said there was no competitive advantage being gained. Basically, it was the equivalent of a pitcher going out there with a glove that's the impermissible color. Like just, sometimes you guys got to change gloves.
Yeah, but I just
That's
thought
what it
the
turned
finish
into.
aspect was interesting because when I saw Eli Ramos's glove bat, I was like tempted to be like, should I tell him this is a bad idea?
No.
For the record, I don't think he actually swings it anymore. So maybe he's decided it's a bad idea on his own.
Maybe he figured it out, or maybe someone helped him understand. Whatever. Yeah, it's one of those things. I would not have ever tried that. That's not how my brain works. Some flyby news items on the way out the door. We did get the update on Trey Turner, grade 1 hamstring strain, so not a season ender at this time, but it did require an IL stint. He went on the IL along with Alec Boehm, who has a cyst in his shoulder to be drained. That should be a minimum
What's going on
stint.
with Kyle Tucker? He's like missing games, but not going on the IL.
Bad calf, yeah.
Yeah.
He's missed a bunch. We just saw Christian Yelich get back from a back injury. First time his back's really seemingly bothered him all year. Missed 5 in a row, but DH'd on Monday. So good news on that front. And the other Cubs news, the follow-up is on Daniel Palencia. He landed on the IL with the shoulder strain. I saw the quote from Craig Counsell was a little ominous on that one. He could not really confirm or deny that the season might be over for Palencia. It's like, oh, great. That's
Brad Keller's my pick.
You like Keller a little more than Kittredge to close out games for the Cubs if you're chasing there. Okay.
But
Edwin Cabrera's throwing again too,
There might be a situation there where they use some of their third and fourth and fifth starters in the bullpen in short innings and have to, get through the bullpen. Like their bullpen versus the San Diego Padres bullpen in the first series of the postseason is gonna be a contrast, let's say.
Yes. Very, very different relief units. Oh, and I mentioned up top, Sean Murphy, season-ending hip surgery. It's on his labrum. He's been playing with that for 3 years, according to the story that David O'Brien wrote in The Athletic.
But he's such a grinder, dude. I almost believe it. Like, it's just, he doesn't complain about stuff. He's just like, he just works super, super hard. And, I could see this like, oh, why didn't you tell us about this 3 years ago? And he's like, because I wanted to play.
Yeah,
I wanted to play.
The defense has still been great. He just hasn't been the same hitter during that span. So maybe after he recovers from this, we'll see a guy that looks more like the player he was upon arrival in Atlanta. So we are going to go on our way out the door. I will remind you can get a subscription to The Athletic. TheAthletic.com/rates and barrels is the best way to do that. There's a great read from Ken Rosenthal today. Former big leaguer DJ Carrasco founded Native Nations a couple of years ago, October 2022, trying to develop a Native American baseball program. They actually had a team that competed in the Babe Ruth World Series last month. Really good feature from Ken on the site today, so be sure to check that out. You can find Eno on Blue Sky, enosaris.bscut@social. I am DVR.bscut@social. Jed is over on Instagram. Thanks to Brian Smith for putting this episode together. No episode on Wednesday this week. We're back with you on Thursday.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.